Hi everyone, I am so proud of how well you guys handled the discussion boards last week. You did such a great job. I have been getting a slew of homework handed into me in my inbox, so I plan on handing those back to you on Tuesday, hopefully. And this week you are going to continue writing your memoirs. This is a fun assignment. It is not a high pressure assignment. If you hand in at least a page, then you get full credit for this. And what I want from this is to be able to see what your writing levels are, okay, where you are with your writing. So I don't want your parents to proofread it or anything like that. I want to see how you write without help. And so really there's no pressure. The grade is 100% if you hand it in. So that's good. But to help you out with that, I know it can be scary kind of starting a new creative writing project. I mean, with an essay, you know exactly what your topic is. But with a creative writing assignment, you can choose anything you want. You can choose something that makes, from the past, that makes you happy, something that makes you sad, something that makes you angry. And so remember, a memoir is just one moment in time, and you're writing about that. And it has to be truthful. It has to be something that happened to you. But something that you also don't mind sharing. So I wanted to, for your reading assignment this week, include a memoir. It is called Me Talk Pretty One Day by David Sedaris, and it is actually just like Amy Tan's selection that you read last week, how that was one chapter of the book from the Joy Luck Club, that is a kind of a collection of her memoirs. This is also from a collection of David Sedaris' memoirs, which has the same title as the short story Me Talk Pretty One Day. There's a few things I want to talk to you about. First of all, this is meant to be funny. He's standing up against a really mean teacher, but the overall feel of it is actually light, and so give yourself permission to laugh. You may be horrified by how the teacher is talking, but realize the author's intent is that this is to be funny, and I want to see if you found it funny, or if maybe in your past you found a teacher like this and they made you upset, and so no, you didn't like this. I want to hear all about it in the discussion board. Okay, so a few things I want to talk about, I want to touch on before we get to discussing these different points of the story, is that when it looks like it's an alphabet soup, that someone just started typing random letters into the keyboard, that is when the teacher is speaking French and he can't understand her, if that makes sense. So it kind of just is a gobbledygook of letters. So that's what that means. I wasn't sure if you guys would pick that up. So here he is. David Sedaris has found himself in Paris by choice, so that he could learn the language, and he's in his 40s. He is not your average student. He's much older, and he decided to sign up for this class so that he could learn French, so that he could go around Paris and speak to people. What he wasn't counting on was the teacher he got. So when he went to school for his first day before the teacher came in, a bunch of the students were standing around talking. And the students were all from different areas of the world. And the one point that he says is, regardless of their nationalities, everyone spoke what sounded to me like excellent French. Now, so keep that in the back of your head. Doesn't always seem like that when you go someplace. It seems like everybody else knows so much more about what's going on than you do. That's the situation that he was in. Did you ever find that's not necessarily true? So at the end of that, he says, as an added discomfort, they were all young, attractive, and well-dressed. It caused me to feel not unlike Pa Kettle trapped backstage after a fashion show. I felt like that. I don't know if you guys have had the experience in life to feel like that, but basically he felt out of place is what he's saying. They all seemed younger than him, they were all dressed to the nines, and they all spoke excellent French, or so he thought. So there he was, a grown man, and he is there as nervous as anything, and he remembers back to all the times that his mother told him to not be afraid, that it'll get better as you get older. And he said, my fears have not vanished, rather they have seasoned and multiplied with age. So his fears have multiplied with age. I am now twice as frightened as I was when at the age of 20. And then he goes on to talk about a nursing student who kind of messes up. The nurse then says, You'll get used to it, the woman said. And he simply says, I'm still waiting. Then in walks the teacher, and she basically says, if you don't know alphabet soup, like I said earlier, then you should not be in this room. She's very strict, and he's thinking to himself, I don't even know the alphabet. I'm in trouble. So we feel like a tension is rising, right? So then we see the teacher come in, and she kind of is brisk. She doesn't say hello. She doesn't really introduce herself. She just says, if you don't have this certain thing down, you should not be in this room. And then she just goes on and proceeds. So what she wants everybody to do is introduce themselves. And so she goes through the alphabet, and as she's going through the alphabet, she's teaching how to say that letter in French, what the sound is like in French. And so she starts with A, ah. And she's asking, does anybody's name start with ah? And so two Annas have said yes, two Polish Annas have raised their hands to speak. And the one woman from Warsaw, he describes, hailed from an industrial town outside of Warsaw and had two front teeth the size of tombstones. And so we're using description words that really have the reader grow in like this vivid imagery of what these people looked like, of what the situation was like, and that's also very important. She worked as a seamstress, she said, and she enjoyed quiet times with friends and hated mosquitoes. And the teacher says, oh, really? How very interesting. I thought that everyone loved the mosquito, but here, in front of all the world, you claim to detest them. How is it that we've been blessed with someone so unique and as original as you? Tell me, please. She's being kind of snarky, isn't she? She's not being nice. And so that just sets the tale, like, for everybody else. Can you feel, with that statement, can you feel everybody sort of tense up? Like, oh. You know, usually the first day of class, the teacher's very nice and welcomes everybody. She's not doing any of that. And so it goes on. He goes on to say that the seamstress did not understand what was being said, but she knew that it was an occasion for shame, just because she said she hated mosquitoes. So the next one I want to point out is next came a beautiful young Yugoslavian. And the teacher licked her lips, revealing a hint of sadist we all would later come to know. She crouched for a low attack, placed her hands on the young woman's desk and said, oh, yeah? And do you love your little war? So I'm going to just, at the time, there was the Serbian-Bosnian War. And so this was in the mid-90s. And this was the war that tore apart Yugoslavia and ended up creating four nations: Serbia, Croatia, Bosnia-Herzegovina, and Macedonia. And what was going on when he was in France taking the class. And so, like, the teacher is trying to shock everybody. And I don't even think, it's not like she's playing favorites or has one student that she does not like. She is mean to everybody. She spreads it out thin. So it came up to the author's turn, and what does he say? Having given it some thought, I then declared my love for IBM typewriters, the French word for bruise, and my electronic floor waxer. So it was a short list, but I still managed to mispronounce IBM, because remember they're speaking in French here, and afford the wrong gender to both the floor waxer and the typewriter. Her reaction led me to believe that these mistakes were capital crimes in the country of France. Were you always this? Alphabet soup? She asked. Even Alphabet soup knows that a typewriter is feminine. And then he says, I absorbed as much of her abuses as I could understand. So he couldn't even really completely understand her. One day she comes up to him and says, I hate you, she said to me one afternoon. Her English was flawless. I really, really hate you. Call me sensitive, but I couldn't help but take it personally. That's just like horrible. Like, at the moment, he probably was horrified, but now looking back on it, it sounds like he laughs about it because he says, call me sensitive, but I couldn't help but take it personally. It's a very kind of dry humor, but it's humor. It made me, when I read it, it made me chuckle out loud. And so she goes on to just basically castigate everybody in the class. So I want you to read this, and in the message board, can you point out things about the teacher? We're going to talk about the characters. So what I want you to do is go in and look for different points in the story that tell you what kind of person David Sedaris is. Okay? And then go in and find something in the story that tells you what kind of person the teacher is. Now, at the end, he does say that he's able to understand some French, even though he still feels like he's worthless at it, when in reality, he's probably learning a lot. He's doing a lot because he's afraid of messing up in class, which is causing him to really actually learn the language. But at the time, he probably didn't feel like he was learning it at all because she was acting the way she was acting. So I'd like you to discuss this short story. In addition to the characters, finding something about David and finding something about the teacher, what are your thoughts on it? Was there anything that struck out to you? Did you ever have a moment like this where someone was so mean that it makes you just sit back today and when you think about it, just kind of laugh because it's so unreal? Like, why are you like this? So I just thought this was kind of like a funny little story of a major moment in his life that was used in this memoir. So, okay. Go in the message board. Please make sure to post your initial discussion by Thursday, and then make sure you have commented on 2 of your peers' posts by Sunday. Thank you.